Early 2025, 1 in 3 nonprofits in this country faced a funding disruption so severe it forced them to cut programs, lay off staff, or close their doors entirely.
It's a dog-eat-dog world, Grandpa.
Not because the mission failed, but because they had one funding source and it disappeared overnight.
Just gone.
This wasn't a fringe issue. This wasn't bad luck. According to the Urban Institute, 23% of disrupted nonprofits reduced programs. Layoff rates doubled sector-wide, and the organizations hit hardest had one thing in common.
Oh yeah? What's that?
They were dependent on a single source of government funding. One policy change, one administrative decision, one line item cut from a federal budget, and years of mission-driven work gone.
Forever.
So if you want to make sure that this never happens to your nonprofit, well, this episode is for you. Welcome back to From Purpose to Profits. Well, hey there. I'm Kimberly Ferguson, CEO and founder of The Emerald Edge. And this series is for nonprofit leaders who are building organizations strong enough to outlast any single funding decision, political shift, or economic disruption.
Nothing is going to get in the way.
Last episode, we talked about building your profit margin. So today, we're diving into protecting it. Because a margin means nothing if your entire revenue model is one phone call away from collapse. Today, I'm giving you the 30% rule, the single most important guardrail in nonprofit financial strategy, and the 5 revenue streams you need to build around it.
This is gonna be good.
Here's a scenario I want you to think about honestly. Pull up your revenue breakdown from last year. Look at where your money actually came from. Now ask yourself, if your single largest funding source disappeared tomorrow, what would happen?
It'll be a disaster!
If the answer is we'd be in serious trouble, well, you're not alone, but you are at risk. Because this is not a revenue model. This is a gamble. And right now, in 2026, thousands of nonprofits across the country are learning that lesson the hard way.
I'd like to avoid that.
The Urban Institute found that nonprofits heavily depend on government grants, averaging about 42% of revenue from a single source, were the ones who faced the steepest cuts, the deepest layoffs, and the most program elimination when federal funding shifts. 42% from one source. That's not a diversified revenue model. That is a single point of failure with a nonprofit tax status.
I can't depend on you. I can't depend on anyone.
So here's the rule I want you to write down right now, really write it down. No single funding source should ever exceed 30% of your total revenue. Not one grant, not one major donor, not one government contract, not one corporate sponsor, not even one fundraising event. 30% maximum. That is your guardrail.
That's really good. Write that down.
And here's why that number works. If any single source disappears, and eventually every source has the potential to disappear, you are losing at most 30% of your revenue. And that is survivable, given that you have that 10 to 20% margin and then the emergency savings account that we discussed in previous videos. So that 30% loss is a crisis you can manage or fundraise through and actually recover from.
But it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Now, if you're losing 60, 70, 80% of your revenue overnight, that's not a crisis. That's a eulogy.
Time of death, now!
So what does a diversified revenue model actually look like? Well, here are the 5 streams every nonprofit in the $500,000 to $5 million range should be intentionally building.
What's number 1?
Number 1, we want grants. Foundation, government, and corporate grants. Yeah, it's okay. Keep them all. But cap any single grant at 30% of your total revenue.
Oh, two.
Number 2, we want to have individual donors. So that's small and mid-level donors that are your most resilient funding source. They don't typically disappear because of a policy change. Build this base consistently and protect it fiercely. They also tend to be your most loyal supporters and will stay with you for the longevity of your nonprofit, or at least as long as they're alive and maybe after.
From beyond the grave, even.
And number 3 is earned income. Your programs, your services, your expertise. As we talked about last episode, pricing them correctly and they become a revenue stream, not just a cost center.
You think I can make money?
Number 4 is corporate partnerships, sponsorships, cause marketing, employee giving programs. Companies want to align with mission-driven organizations. Let them, on your terms.
This is gold.
And then 5, we want to have events and community fundraising. Not your primary source, but a reliable annual touch point that deepens donor relationships and generates unrestricted revenue. Look at Feeding America, one of the most financially resilient nonprofits in the country. Their model blends corporate partnerships, individual donors, earned revenue from food bank networks, and public support. No single stream dominates. And in their fiscal year 2023, they managed $5.15 billion in total support across that diversified base.
That's impressive.
They are not resilient by accident. They're resilient by design. And you can build the same discipline at $500,000 in revenue that they built at $5 billion. The principle is identical, only the zeros are different.
Thank you very much. This has been very helpful to me.
So here's your one action step before the next episode. Pull your revenue breakdown. Calculate what percentage each source represents of your total revenue. Find your highest concentration. If anything is above 30%, that is your starting point. Not a reason to panic, a reason to plan.
He's running numbers. He's running numbers.
And if you want help building a diversified revenue strategy that protects your mission from exactly the kind of disruption we saw in previous years, go ahead and use the link below. That is exactly the work that we do at the Emerald Edge.
Click it. Click it.
This has been From Purpose to Profits, where we prove that doing good and doing well aren't opposites. They're partners in creating lasting change. But if you're sitting there thinking, okay, Kimberly, I've got my margin target, I've got my pricing framework, I know I need to diversify, but every time I try to have these conversations internally, I hit a wall. My board just doesn't get it. My team is resistant, and I feel like I'm fighting this battle alone.
That is exactly how I feel.
Well, next episode, we're talking about the financial leadership gap inside most nonprofits. Why most organizations are making million-dollar decisions without a single person at the table who actually understands nonprofit finance. And what you can do about it. And trust me, you don't want to miss this one. So make sure that you're subscribed.
Subscribe.
And remember, a nonprofit with one funding source isn't diversified, it's dependent. And dependent organizations don't survive disruption. They become a casualty of it. So keep leading with purpose, and I'll see you in the next episode.